This translates into 3,600,000,000 kwacha that can be collected per year for 6 million people on their health coverage. Financial literacy, that's pillar number 5. In our sector, our members need to understand their business transactions in full. Capital, very important, and total expenditures recorded on a daily basis. Zanamaka has designed a financial literacy book in 8 official languages: English, Lunda, Kaonde, Tonga, Luvale, Lozi, Bemba, and Nyanja, to be used as a tool of business growth. The book needs to be supported for publication and distribution to the informal sector countrywide. This is the book here. Everything is here for our people. Pillar number 6, the agricultural value chain. Inclusive policy and frameworks. The informal sector's contribution to agricultural value chains should be recognized and supported through simplified regulations, reduced bureaucracy, and tailored support mechanisms. Accessible and affordable financing. Accessible and affordable financing options are needed to support the marketeers, small-scale farmers, and the SMEs throughout the value chain. Capacity building and technical assistance. Capacity building and technical assistance are needed to enhance productivity and quality along the value chain. Market linkages and value addition. Government should enhance market linkages and value addition through processing, packaging, and branding to increase product value and marketability. Digital solutions and innovations. Digital solutions and innovation should be advocated to enhance efficiency, market information, and financial inclusion for stakeholders in agricultural value chains. Gender inclusivity and empowerment. Gender inclusivity and empowerment, particularly gender mainstreaming in value chain development, should be advocated for, ensuring equitable access to resources and opportunities for women, sustainability, and climate resilience. The integration of climate smart policy practices into value chains to enhance resilience against climate change impacts is important. Pillar number 7, market infrastructure development and empowerment. Our markets in the country need a facelift to provide a conducive business environment which will accommodate and create more permanent jobs for our many women and youths. Infrastructure development is needed in form of rural and feeder roads, processing facilities for value addition and storage facilities that reduce post-harvest losses. Empowerment initiatives may include but not limited to the formation of a micro financial institution specifically for the informal sector. I think this is one of the challenges that we've had as people in the informal sector. You can't walk in the bank because you have no record. So we believe if we can have a financial institution that specifically will deal with the informal sector, the marketeers, the small-scale farmers, the traders, I think it will make a lot of sense and our people will be able to benefit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamena, for that presentation. May I now invite Dr. Sixtus Mlenga, who is going to give us some thoughts on from the petroleum explorers, gemstone and manganese miners. Dr. Mlenga, you have 5 minutes in which to make your intervention. Let's encourage him, please, as he wants to.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Could you kindly show my slides first? Thank you. I'm Sixtus Mlenga from the extractive industry. Today, I'd like to focus on other sectors in the extractive industries that can contribute to economic growth and contribute to the national treasury. And my focus is on manganese sector, gemstone sector, and petroleum exploration sector. To start with, I'll talk about manganese sector. Manganese, as we all know, is one of the critical minerals in the growth of the green economy in the world. But for us here in Zambia, manganese has the potential to develop a local-based steel industry. For any country in the world to develop, you need to have steel. We have the components in Zambia: manganese, nickel, iron, and surely we can develop a steel industry. Furthermore, manganese can be used to produce electric car batteries products and enhance Zambia's role in the green economy. One major constraint this sector has in Zambia is the high cost of export. Because we are land linked, the cost of exporting material is very expensive, and the port charges are also very expensive. That makes our exports or the business of manganese less competitive as compared to our colleagues or other countries who have seaports, examples being Australia, South Africa, and nearby Gabon. So, against this background, what are we asking for? Especially the fact that now we've got Zambians entering the manganese large-scale mining, like our company Musam Resources Limited. What we are asking is government to provide a relief, financial relief to indigenous Zambians as to make it possible for them to do this business economically. And this can be done by providing a waiver of export duty during the time of development, and secondly, providing import duty exemptions and VAT deferment on importation of plant and machinery to build value addition plants and processing plants. Furthermore, government should continue in the infrastructural development. We need improvement to Tazara railways so that we are able to export our products in bulk and reduce the unit cost of production. As you know, mining is a high volume product. Roads, communication, etc. I now move to the second aspect, which is gemstone sector. For the gemstone sector, it can equally provide significant contribution to the national treasury only if we take critical fiscal measures that introduces what one would call loosely restricted trade of gemstones. And what do we mean by that? What we mean is that government should introduce a system that trading in rough gemstones in this country, in particular emeralds as an example, should be restricted to two categories. One, companies that have mining licenses. Two, companies that cut, polish, and manufacture jewelry. These are the two categories to which trading in rough gemstones in the country should be restricted to. Once we do that, it will bring in a lot of international investment because they will feel that the business is protected and has got a very framework which they can operate in. Thirdly, I would now like to talk about petroleum. You may be interested to hear that Zambia has got a similar geological setting which has potential for oil and gas. The geological setting in Zambia is similar to our neighboring countries who are producing oil and gas. But you may be wondering, why? Why are we not exploring? Because in Zambia, we have the Rift Valley extension where oil has been found. We have the Atlantic sub-basin where oil has been found, but nothing. The reason for that is we have investment framework which we still need to work on. And our proposal, just to mention one big one, is that the government need to consider reducing its free carry from the current 35% to 10%. And if we do that, we will be in line with the region and will be very competitive. I'm sure a lot of you are following what is going on. Very soon, in the near future, you hear one of our neighboring countries announce discovery of oil and gas. Zambia can also do it. At the end of the day, what is the goal? The goal is, I'll put a road. Could you please show the last but one slide? I've shown that's where we're heading to. Zambia has to end up with a strong, robust, diversified extractive industry, anchored on the base metal, which at that time should produce plus 3 million tons, but having a very strong gemstone sector, a very strong petroleum sector or emerging petroleum exploration sector, and a very strong emerging green economy. I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mlenga, for that intervention. So, as indicated earlier, the government has given its share of the information in terms of how the economy performed January to June and its thoughts on in the future for the medium term, 2024 to 2026. So we will continue to receive reflections and thoughts from stakeholders, with our next being the representative from Zambia Session of Chambers of Commerce and Industry. As you come to make your presentation, please introduce yourself, give us a sense of the membership of ZACI, and then proceed into your presentation. All protocol observed. Proceed.
Thank you so much, and I recognize the Minister and all representatives here. I ride on your protocols. The Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, your apex body, the highest body of the private sector in Zambia, cuts across the country. It has 34 provincial / district chambers. So we have district chambers in all provinces and many districts. We have membership associations attached to ZACI. You hear of Zambia Association of Manufacturers itself. They are members of ZACI. We have the academia, universities, UNILAS, to cite a few. And broadly, we have understandings, MOUs, with various institutions, both local and international, as well as agreements with various international chambers of commerce around the world. We are there as a chamber to promote and advocate for private sector growth. So we can't succeed without the private sector and the people on the ground. So please, where you're located, do get in touch with your local chamber. With regard to today's event, we would like to comment and acknowledge the submissions made through the Ministry of Finance and National Planning, and appreciate the interaction that you continue to hold with the private sector. Macroeconomic stability, we know, is here to stay now, and as a private sector apex body, we retain the fullest confidence that we've seen, given the government's deliberate initiative in ensuring that there is economic growth in the country. And of course, that has to now translate working together with the private sector into job creation. The remaining discussions with regard to ensuring that debt sustainability is achieved, to that we retain equally the fullest confidence that all the discussions that are yet to be held and the results attained will be attained with the desired position that we all seek. We note, and it is commendable, that Zambia ensures any productivity gains are sustained and aligned with environmental protection standards. Further, we note and believe that the utilization of the PPP model to fund infrastructure and other developmental projects will reinforce the country's ongoing commitment in ensuring that service delivery is available. Multiple sectors have been referred to that do need infrastructure development, roads, rail, and others. To that, we encourage our government through the appropriate ministries to ensure that that is extended to residential markets so that we ensure clean cities across the country. The exercise that you're undertaking in relocating our brothers and sisters who are trading on the streets into clean markets is commendable, and let's uphold and continue with that. With regard to the Comprehensive Agriculture Transformation Support Program, private sector, we encourage ourselves to equally take and own this process. As government engages us and all stakeholders, let's ensure that we are committed to ensuring that such programs that can increase the yield in terms of agriculture and other aspects related to our food production upheld, and we play our role as private sector. If loan facilities are introduced, let's ensure that we pay back. It's very, very important that whatever is given to us as private sector, and where we need to multiply the yield, we multiply the yield, but ensure that we pay back if we took loans. Where government is, and as a government, with the support of the private sector, we encourage you to continuously work at identifying, mitigating, and addressing potential risks that could impede the achievement of our macroeconomic objectives, and we stand shoulder and shoulder with the government in ensuring that is done. In looking at sectors, we appeal to the Ministry of Finance to ensure that the service sector, as you look at various ministries, you're talking about tourism, agriculture, mining, we appeal that we look at a service sector with a different dimension, try to dissect the service sector and to see the benefits that can be derived out of growing the service sector. We believe it is one sector that is not fully being highlighted independently that can significantly create to job creation. We wish to extend our recognition to the government for its prudent decision to adopt an equity-based approach rather than a mere equality-centric approach for the allocation of constituency development funds. We are confident that probably year on year, you shall be increasing the amount that is allocated to the CDF, and there we shall see the local authorities become responsible in utilizing the CDF and ensuring that where compliance, repayments, or grants are undertaken, they shall result in tangible projects that can be appreciated by the society and the Zambian people at large. By incorporating considerations of both needs and population magnitude, this approach is poised to ensure judicious distribution of resources across the country. In summation, through you, Honorable Minister, we would like to appeal to government through your ministry to bring together all sector regulators and the private sector, even to an endeavor or some form of dialogue, so that collectively and jointly we can identify the rigidities, areas of potential growth, and indeed deliberate workspaces or initiatives that can grow not only the SMEs in Zambia, but the private sector at large. These will see a deliberate and rapid industrialization space in Zambia, as well as inward private sector investment that will trigger more jobs, and more jobs. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaosha. The importance of the registration we are taking as you walked in is that when the event is over, all these presentations are going to be shared with all of you, but also with those that are not here but are on our mail list. We'll proceed to the next presentation, which is coming from the Zambia Association of Manufacturers. As you make your presentation, I'll ask Zambia National Farmers Union to be on standby. So can we have the representative from ZAM? Let's encourage the madam as she comes to make a presentation. So, madam, I know you quite well with timekeeping. That is one of your gemstones as ZAM. So let's see how you keep time to 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'll just give a brief for those who do not know. ZAM, Zambia Association of Manufacturers, is a private sector-led association. We represent the interests of manufacturers in this country. Most of our members are in the agro-processing sector, and we represent 20 subsectors. I'll go straight into it.
Just introduce yourself so that we are everybody's familiar. I know who you are.
To keep the time.
Yes, please.
Okay, so my name is Muntanga Lindunda. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for ZAM. So just to give a brief of a highlight of how the sector has performed in the first 2 quarters, in comparison to the last 3 years, I generally want to paint a picture of the fact that the manufacturing sector has been improving over the last 3 years, and that then we'll share the challenges that we've been grappling with. So, for example, in Q1 of 2021, the manufacturing sector value-added percentage growth rate was at negative 3.1% compared to the negative 2.8% and the 1.3% in the Q1 of 2022. In Q1 of 2023, we performed better than the Q1 of 2021 and 2022, which shows that there's been improvement in the performance of the sector in the last 3 years. So a lot of value addition is going on, as well as other factors, as you will see in my presentation. So this has been despite the many challenges that we have been facing, which include the electricity disruption that we had at the beginning of the year that had quite lasting implications for many manufacturers, because energy is quite a huge input in our processes. The other challenge we had, of course, was the exchange rate instability. Although we have noted an improvement, this has had an impact on the manufacturers, because the inputs that are required in the processes, some of them are imported. Not all inputs are sourced locally. So the one that I would like to labor on is the cost of doing business. Of course, we are aware of the high level or the number of licenses that are required for one to do business in this country, and this is something that we have labored on presenting as a challenge, because it also presents a barrier to foreign direct investment from what we have seen, and the potential sectors that could be invested in end up being affected by the high cost of the many documentations that are needed. But the other one is also in the agricultural sector. I earlier mentioned that the agro-processing sector is the largest. So what happens in the agricultural sector affects the manufacturers, because the current position of VAT exemption status, let me say, in the agricultural sector makes things expensive, because if we are not able to reinvest or claim input tax, then it will be difficult to reinvest back into our processes as manufacturers. So we recommend that we move to a zero-rated VAT rather than the exemption status. In terms of expectations for the rest of the year, especially through Q3 and Q4, we are saying that we expect performance to improve greatly, especially that Zambia has reached a debt agreement with its official creditors, and we expect that we'll be able to predict there will be predictability in business, because that's what we actually long for. Being able to predict the economic landscape allows manufacturers to plan accordingly. We also expect that in the third and fourth quarter, the fuel pump prices will also stabilize, because this will also allow manufacturers to plan. We consistently advocate for quarterly reviews of fuel pump prices for the same reason of predictability. When it comes to our comments on the medium-term budget plan, we note that the debt service repayments have been alluded to, and will come the proposal by government to focus on key sectors such as education, health, infrastructure, which are all an indirect impact in the manufacturing sector. In addition, government can channel extra funds to the dismantling of domestic debt, such as the VAT remittance, and encourage manufacturers to make investments in the expansion of their businesses. With regards to financial assets, the increased financial access for SMEs is something that we encourage, because then more and more SMEs who have had an issue of access to finance will be able to be encouraged to go into value addition, and this will grow the sector and reduce unemployment. And also a resulting factor of this is that there will be more jobs for our youth as they will venture into, we anticipate they venture more into value addition activities. When it comes to education, the equipping skills, we note the focus on skills training of institutions, and we encourage this, but what we are proposing is a demand-driven skills skills development, for curriculum development to be done together with private sector or industry players, so that we can bridge the gaps at a faster rate, because we'll be able to give you practical input on what industry really requires. So if this can be demand driven, then it will be quite relevant for the manufacturers. I submit, and I hope I'm within time.
Thank you very much, CEO, for that submission. Obviously, we will also make it available to all stakeholders. We'll move to the intervention from the Zambia National Farmers Union. May I invite the representative to come forward, introduce yourself, and proceed with the presentation, as I ask the rep from the Zambia Chamber of Mines to be on standby. If they are to be ready, we will proceed to the Zambia Chamber of Mines. The representative from Zambia Chamber of Mines, please come forward. As he comes to make his intervention, may I ask the representative from the Bankers Association of Zambia to be on standby, please. You can proceed to the podium in front, Mr. Chilembo. Introduce yourself, your organization, and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, senior officials from the Ministry, DG, and colleagues from the rest of the economy. The Zambia Chamber of Mines is a representative of the large-scale miners who promote a responsible large-scale mining ethic in the country, and is part of the Mining Industry Association of Southern Africa, which is a grouping of similar organizations throughout SADC, from which we get best practice and viewpoint. And Zambia has been privileged to chair this association across the region since 2022. Allow me to begin by encouraging the minister and the team from finance to continue on their path of continuously improving the investment environment for mining and extractives in the country. We urge them to take heart and to also consider the additional upside that the coming online of Enterprise provides them, Enterprise being the largest nickel mine in Africa. Nickel prices are triple those of copper, and its contribution along with that of Maviza, the other copper mine in country, is significant, and therefore does to some extent improve the resilience and increase the level of headroom available to them going forward, which we would urge them to continue, and in fact to accelerate their pace of improving our investment environment with a view to attracting more capital into the sector, and also spurring diversification. We also would like to commend the Director General ZRA for increasing the tax net, because as you all know and as you've seen from the numbers, the burden has lain very squarely on the membership of the Chamber of Mines in terms of carrying most of the tax burden and tax revenue streams for the country. Now, as regards the priorities, pace is everything. As you know, we are on the run to getting to 3 million tons, and exploration is the priority. We are in a hurry, and we need this improved investment environment in order to hit that $200 million per annum exploration investment target as soon as possible. We are beginning to see the first shoots of such progress through Cobalt's Mingomba investment, and Cobalt has joined the chamber as leading responsible mining companies do. And we've also seen increased exploration activity and investment in increased mining fleet at Barrick Lumwana. But we still need to differentiate Zambia as an investment destination in order to climb up the priority lists of global major mining companies and to attract investment into our exploration sector as well. So competitiveness is our key focus in our presentations and submissions to the ministry. The race for mining capital is cutthroat. Local mobilization of existing large operators and investors into exploration is suggested through various mechanisms such as exploration tax credits and allowances or allowabilities of these for capital allowances. But we also need to cover the entire country as swiftly as we can. This will involve not just bringing in capital from abroad or mobilizing capital from our large chamber members, but we also need to create a pathway for formalization and access to capital and consequently capital markets for explorers and small-scale miners within the country. This is not reinventing the wheel. We simply need to look around the world. 3/4 of exploration is financed this way in large markets such as Canada and Australia, and we would do well to follow these examples swiftly if we are to cover the country fast enough to build reserves and support our 3 million ton ambition. We also need to expedite the turnaround and development of a project pipeline in actual existing projects and projects that are close to development. And, we must commend the head of state, the minister, and his team for pleasantly surprising us with the debt deal as they did, because this has already translated through the re-rating by Moody's to a lowering of the cost of capital as a practical first step towards improving our attractiveness as a destination. But like we said, even at this level of production, competitiveness is key, because this is an even more cutthroat niche than exploration. We need to be as competitive in tax terms as the key sources of capital to our region, that is Africa. 50% of this comes from South Africa. Therefore, it is only, and I think it is obvious, that in order to remove any barriers to entry from South Africa, effective tax rate parity with that destination will greatly improve our chances of bringing project providers of capital and skills, especially in our deep mining copper belt, from that destination, which as all know, is the world's leading deep mining country. We have a lot of measures around these, many of which have been submitted before, but we would like at this stage also to commend the Minister and the team and the Director General for the steps that have been taken towards the restoration of the VAT cycle. This is a key component that will free up working capital and enable us and all players in our value chains to contribute more significantly to the economy. And we urge again to expedite this effective tax rate parity, because that will drive the capital investment, which will drive the investment into the value chain, which will maintain our PMI, the Stanbic PMI, above 50 for a much, or will give it a much stronger outlook going forward, which is what we all desperately need for the economy to continue to trend upward. Finally, we really need an easing of doing mining business in this country. We would urge on the spend side for the team at the ministry and for the minister and his directors to emphasize more resources or apply more resources to the Ministry of Mines. This will enable loopholes which presently are attributed to large-scale miners to be sealed. This will enable a better investment ranking as greater control is applied by the imminently to be formed regulator. And we would also urge that the restoration of the provision to have revenue shares with the municipalities and rural councils that host mines be restored, because this is actually an infrastructure avenue to support actors within the mining value chain in the immediate vicinity of mines, who constitute the lowest hanging fruit to restoring industrialization and restoring growth within the manufacturing and other input sectors access to the mining sector. So with these few comments, I'd simply like to add to what Dr. Mlenga said and re-emphasize that we need to begin to do this exploration in country. You shouldn't need to jump on a plane to Johannesburg. You should be able to come to Lusaka and do it. And these proposals that we have around locally mobilizing capital are key to us swiftly covering the country and turning ourselves into the extractive powerhouse that we are supposed to be. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chilembo. The minister and the team are taking note, but also the audiences, both online, on television, and right in the room. The facilities we're enjoying this morning, which is the space and everything else, the live broadcasts, have been brought to you through a combined partnership of Deloitte and USAID Revenue for Growth project. We'll move to the next presentation from the Bankers Association of Zambia before we come to the last one in this segment, which will be just the final thoughts from the Economics Association of Zambia. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. My name is Leonard Mwanza. I'm the CEO for the Bankers Association of Zambia. I would like to recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister of Finance and to ride on the area protocols established. Let me start by saying that the Bankers Association of Zambia represents the commercial banking sector in this country. We are 17 members, yet to be 16. And we look at financial sector stability, efficiencies in terms of the payment platforms, financial inclusion, but more importantly, providing solutions to the economy. So I'll try and highlight a few of the initiatives that are happening in the sector. But before I go to just give you a synopsis of what's happening in the banking sector, allow me to just thank the Honorable Minister for being very, very consistent. We've been having these regular town hall meetings, and in addition to that, I think we've been receiving regular updates in terms of bulletins around how the budget spend is going, the revenue mobilization is going. I think this speaks to two things, budget credibility and transparency. I think most government spending agents and grant-aided institutions can attest to the fact that funding is coming as and when it's programmed. I think that speaks to budget credibility. I think a lot has been discussed in terms of where we are from an economic perspective, but let me just add that in our view, if you look at the last 3 months, the business environment has been improving, and my reference is to the Stanbic PMI index, which has consistently shown a reading of about 50% in the last 3 months. So that speaks to the fact that there is an improved business environment. In terms of what has come out from the debt restructuring, this is no mean achievement, but for the banking sector, I think we were elated in the sense that we were fearful that the local debt held by foreign-owned banks and offshore market players will be included as part of the debt treatment. But true to your assurances in the many times that we met you over this issue, I think this matter was not included, and it's quite a huge relief to the industry. With that, we do hope that foreign direct investment will now be realized. Realization of FDI is feasible. I think we are seeing some notable progress in the mining sector, and particularly in the area of FDI. I think one of the things that was allowing people to sit on the fence was concerns around sovereign default risks. We did earlier on here that we default defaulted in November 2020, and from that time, the country was technically in default. So those sovereign default risk concerns were quite high in terms of those people that may have been on the wait and see. Now, how is the banking sector outlook for the first year? I must say that the banking sector in the first half of the year has been quite resilient, and we saw quite some growth in terms of a number of areas. One of the particular positive performances in the area of the asset quality, I think our NPLs are below 5%, and this has been running for the last 2 years. I think this is where we are. In terms of the total banking assets, they grew by 20% from last year, June. So we are now sitting at 196 billion kwacha in terms of banking assets from 163 billion a year ago. Customer deposits also did grow quite significantly year on year by 25.8 billion, which is a 21.6%. So we are now sitting at 145 billion worth of deposits, your money, from 119 billion in 2022. In terms of the loans, I know there's always that sticking issue around the cost of funds, the average of 25.1% area alluded to, but with that, money still continue to flow into the real economy. The loans also year on year grew by 10.8 billion, which was 26%. So we are now sitting at 52.4 billion kwacha, that is sitting in the hands of households, individuals, and the private sector, from 41.5 billion a year ago. Just in the first quarter, the sector released 12.3 billion in terms of new loans and advances to 908,633 clients. These are households and individuals and businesses. We are glad to say, Honorable Minister, that out of this number, 30% are from rural areas and 70% are from the urban areas. Out of this disbursement, 1.5 billion was given to 64,000 SMEs, and 5 billion kwacha went to 842,950 households and individuals, while 4.9 billion went to large businesses, and the balance of 900 million went to the agriculture sector, both large and the emerging farmers. We further wish to highlight to you that lending is also disaggregated to specific interest groups. I think the women or female-led businesses are taking center stage. I think they were not left out in that number. Whether they are individuals or businesses, over 275,000 beneficiaries were women, and they hold 30% of the loan stock of about 1.5 billion. This is just disbursement for the first quarter of this year. And the youths also accounted for 42.6%, which is about 386,000, and they were sitting with 1.7 billion kwacha in terms of the total loans that were disbursed in the first quarter. We will continue to be part of the economy, whether it's through public-private sector partnerships. We are happy that the announced road construction of the Ndola Lusaka is being financed by one of our members as a co-financier. So banks are very keen in these private public partnership kind of projects, not just the Ndola Lusaka dual carriage. I think there are a number of projects that the ministry has lined up, or the government has lined up, and our members are quite keen in terms of hand-holding and providing solutions. We will continue to support all the key sectors of the economy, and I must say that when you look at the lending space, 70.5% of what is lent in the market is coming from the 17 commercial banks, whilst 21.2% is from the microfinancial institutions, and then the remainder from the other non-bank financial institutions. We see that with the debt restructuring, the economy has been reset and the ball has now been passed to the private sector. We feel that to be a central role that the banks will play in terms of ensuring that the private sector are well supported. And obviously the discussion around cost of capital is a long one. It has got a long history, but we'll continue to advocate for accessible finance, whether that is through guarantee schemes, risk-sharing mechanisms, or indeed just ensuring that we reduce the cost of capital so that we can broaden the number of people that can access the funding. So we will be there, whether it's in manufacturing, mining, agriculture, and the SME sector. I was quite interested in the number shared by the Commissioner General, where he said only 700 people are contributing 80% of our tax revenue. Maybe we can look more into the numbers, and if we have 64,000 SMEs being supported, the question is, why are they not supporting you in terms of revenue? With that, I think we need to, Honorable Minister, perhaps ensure that we accelerate the digital identity project, because the banking sector has moved a lot of steps in terms of digitizing the payment landscape. You can now receive money anytime, real time, in instant. But I think we need the INRIS project to be concluded. I hope the project we know has started in earnest. If this can be actualized, it will achieve a lot of advantages to the sector, but to the economy at large, because then we can have database information around how many people have been reached and how many people are not there. And we can also ensure that we extend financial inclusion, because issues of requirements to open accounts will be much easier, because we can create a centralized KYC. I submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwanza. As agreed, we'll get a copy of your submission and share with our stakeholders. We will come to the final intervention in this segment, and this is from the Economic Association of Zambia. Having heard what the government has said and the stakeholders are saying, what are your thoughts as EAZ? Just give us a sense of who you are, and then you proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, our protocols observed, as we've been told. The Economics Association of Zambia is, by name, a professional association of economists and allied disciplines that operates as a society under the Societies Act. And we're here to work alongside government and other stakeholders to ensure that we have a well-functioning economy, so that the benefits of what is endowed in this nation trickles down to everyone else. We work with many stakeholders, including the cooperating partners, civil society, the academia, media, and other like think tanks. So the EAZ is a very odd organization, originally formed in 1962, and over the years we've played a major role in ensuring that economic management and overall governance in this country is well nourished and sustained. So we are here to support the efforts of government alongside other stakeholders to ensure that this country rebuilds its economy after this long spell of indebtedness which has stifled economic growth. So we are reacting to the submissions made today, but at the same time also we did a very detailed analytical paper on the macroeconomic framework over the period 2023 to 2025. We note that government has set targets that aim to attain macroeconomic stability and support economic growth. Government targets an average growth of 4.7% over the medium-term budget plan period, with an annual inflation rate maintained in the 6 to 8% band. Government further aims to increase domestic revenue and limit domestic borrowing. Well
intended, well thought out, and we all hope that this can be achieved. But in doing so, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. A lot of effort needs to be applied to ensure that this is done. So I'm not going to go through the aspects pertaining to what has already been presented, but just to give some brief comments on how we see things factoring out and where government should be focusing. To start with, looking on our GDP growth rate, the numbers were already given, and going by what you received in the interest of time, we anchor all this on the country's Vision 2030 aspirations, our 8th National Development Plan and the medium-term budget plan, which seem overly to be pessimistic about achieving higher growth. We understand the background where we're coming from, but that aside, we should also start working and aspire towards higher growth. So although growth rate projections in the MTBP have slightly improved from what the 8th National Development Plan projects, they are still way below the country's aspirations. So these aspirations border on many things that are supposed to be done across sectors. So the economy is expected to grow at relatively higher rates in order to attain the desired development objectives, which include reduction in poverty rates. As you have seen, that poverty has been on the upswing, and increasing more opportunities also for employment and income generation for the citizenry. Growth will therefore have to be significantly higher to attain the aspirations of the Vision 2030. 2030 is around the corner. It's not far-fetched. So as we work in that area, our key economic sector as a country has been mining. I heard Dr. Mlenga talking about what we can get from manganese and the gemstone subsector. I superintended over a gemstone auction sometime with him at Intercontinental Hotel, which was done in this country. If you recall, Doc, we raised over $30 million in a single day. And you saw what happened recently. That tells you what is feasible and what is possible if we apply ourselves and do what is right. So looking at the main commodity of interest, copper, production needs to be ramped up, yes, but to do that, we need to ensure that we deal with the issues that are stifling that production, and this pertains to resolving the issues around Konkola copper mine and Mopani copper mines, which have taken off a lot of the produce that we expected to extract from the mining sector. So as EAZ, we support the government's desire to increase production to 3 million metric tons in 10 years, but there's need to articulate a clear master plan to achieve this feat. The master plan should include annual milestones that should enable stakeholders assist government in monitoring progress towards attaining this important objective. Copper is Zambia. Even our football team is called Chipolo Polo. Our women's team are called Chipolo Polo. They all relate to copper, for those that did not know. Chipolo Polo is a bullet. A bullet is made out of copper, so that is the pride of the nation. But that must translate into, feasible and tenable outcomes. So as we work on that also, we've seen that in the exchange rate market, there's been some volatility. We have a lot of vulnerability in our currency relative to other currencies,
And as EAZ, we see that positive market sentiments, mainly arising from the progress that we've made with debt restructuring, have supported the appreciation of the kwacha. However, the sentiments over time have waned off as we have a strong upward movement of the currency. We've seen Bank of Zambia being compelled to introduce some quantitative strengthening measures to curtail further depreciation, but these are largely meant to enhance stability, but it hasn't been as expected. So we are hoping that the mining sector also can come in and make a difference, because what we've seen is that demand outstrips supply, and there hasn't been consistency. So as one of the major challenges the economy seems to be facing is enhancing its foreign exchange earning potential. This was seen in the statistics that were given, with the trade balance growing at a reducing rate. Therefore, within the 8th National Development Plan, there's a pledge that policies will be put in place to diversify foreign exchange sources and increase earnings. What does that entail? We need to ensure that we increase earnings, including promoting FDI and resolving the challenges which I've alluded to at Mopani and Konkola. The country needs to enhance its export sector by putting in place a robust export earning strategy or strategies. Other than copper, there are still many opportunities that remain unexploited. I've talked about gemstones, the wood and forestry products, agriculture, and livestock products. Coming to the budget deficit, that was well alluded to, the numbers were given. Our comment is that government should endeavor to cut unnecessary expenditure in 2024. And that also will not minister that there is need to ensure that domestic revenue is increased, not necessarily by increasing taxes, but ensuring that the private sector, where taxes come from, thrives, and at the same time, we plug the leakages in the public sector, where despite all the measures that have been put in place, some people don't seem to be scared enough. They don't seem to be deterred. We need to ensure that these leakages are sealed, and that extends to ZRI. My dear brother, the Commissioner General, I'll address you specifically. ZRI needs to do more to broaden the tax base and deal with the informal sector. We had Zanamaka here. I've interacted with Zanamaka. I know what is feasible, what is collectible within that informal sector. There's this illusion that people don't have money there. They probably have more money, cash in their pockets than a lot of us that are sitting here. That is the nature of the street. But there is no tax collection mechanism in existence right now to ensure that we tax the informal sector. Even if they were to contribute minimal amounts, it would amount to something worthwhile. We heard the numbers from the Zanamaka president. That is feasible, and we want to interrogate that and ensure that they come to the table and contribute to this nation. So this is a call on you that CG, we need to chat and ensure that even the leakages also in ZRA, they need to be plugged. There's still some things that are happening which are not good for the interests of the nation. We'll deal with that later, CG. I'm still on you. Thank you. So one critical aspect that government needs to look at as they try to increase domestic revenue is to work towards stimulation of growth through creating the right environment for private sector development. We've seen the public-private dialogue forum put in place, and which was well intended so that it unlocks the rigidities that constrain private sector performance. But so far, we have not come to see the impact that the PPDF is achieving. That needs to be reviewed so that we can ascertain the outcomes and performance improvements arising from this noble thing that has been put in place. And that goes to the state-owned enterprises. They still not making a meaningful contribution to the economy. These are not social enterprises, they're commercial entities. They need to be productive, they need to be commercially viable, productive, competitive, just like the private sector, because money has been invested there, there's a lot of resource, a lot of technology has gone in, but we're not getting the dividends. Minister, you need to be getting checks that are worthwhile from the SOEs. So far, what we've seen is that the SOEs are largely self-sustaining. They are not rewarding to the citizenry, the owners of the money, the shareholders. That cannot be left to continue. So the Minister of Finance needs to review this, because you are the SOE Incorporated, you are the holder of the SOEs, and therefore would like to see the flaws and risks in this area managed so that we can all benefit from the returns from that investment. Anchored on the pillars for the strategic areas of the 8th National Development Plan, we also note that there is a focus towards job creation. Government is aiming at transforming the economy, and this is something that must go hand in hand with ensuring that job creation is at the center of this agenda. We have so many youths that are getting involved in illegal vices, doing things that they shouldn't be doing because of not having a job. They are willing, educated, and able, and at the end of the day, we would like to see government doing more. And we applaud government for some of the novel job creation initiatives, in particular the provision of skills training under the CDF. Youths in constituencies now are able to access vocational and technical training with scholarship funded by the Constituency Development Fund. This results in building a cadre of skilled youths at Zeno level, and well as those that need specialized skills, like in the construction sector, where there is an avenue for them to earn a decent income. However, there is need for more to be done, and government should develop a deliberate job creation agenda, which will identify specific sectors and subsectors that can be targeted for that. The interventions needed to stimulate job creation must also include ascertaining the numbers that are being created and how the jobs will be counted for on an annual basis, something that can be done through the SAMSTATs. Looking at agriculture, livestock, and fisheries sectors, our comments are that although the MTBP states that the CAT, those of you that do not know the CAT, what it is, the Comprehensive Agriculture Transformation Support Program, which government has pitched as the thrust for transforming the agriculture sector, is in place and should be implemented in full by 2024. It is difficult to understand how this will be possible, given that the actual document for this worthwhile program is still being drafted. And we believe that once it's fully launched, it may take some time also for things to be put in place for it to realize the intended objectives. We therefore foresee this to come on stream much more in 2025 rather than 2024. And it's allowable, Minister, that we do it in that way, sensitize the public, they understand, but deal with the aspect of that component which is still on our cards, the FISIP. So there's a high chance that the cuts can only be attained in 2025 as it's in the process of being finalized. But as I sounded this alarm also on the FISIP, we need to reduce that subsidy and invest instead much of the money which goes to those that are well off. As a matter of fact, IAPRI has done research, it's on record. We need to deal with this aspect. invest in infrastructure and mechanisms for commercial farming. This is what will ensure that we export worthwhile quantities and ensure there are export earnings from this sector, agriculture, which is going to add value and grow our economy. We'll even probably forgo all these problems we have right now with meal and the salt. So we need to ramp up commercial farming and use contract farmers. There's so much land, arable land, which is idle. People are concentrated in Lusaka and crying about land, but much of the land is just yearning out there, and much more needs to be done. That includes ensuring that the farming blocks are fully covered. We get farmers there to come in and invest on a PPP basis. Finally, coming to, thank you, just on time. I know my brother Chileshe is particular on time, but EAZ does so much to say, quite a mouthful. It is important that the issue of debt management is given a lot of prominence now. We know that there's the legal framework that has been put in place, and Parliament is going to have enhanced, oversight, but this needs to be realized, and we hope that Parliament will also rise to the occasion and make a difference. We need that oversight role to become very pronounced, and we should see Parliament having a main stake in the way the country contracts debt and manages the debt going forward. It is important also that we set up a sinking fund for various commercial loans that the country is going to be managing and possibly acquiring. So as I conclude now, I must say that on the CDF under decentralization, we need to see that there is increase absorption, but absorption with discipline. Minister, we've been hearing of some elements of indiscipline in the application of the Constituency Development Fund. This must be curtailed, and our view is that government should also moderate the allocations to CDF for now. First and foremost, we need to give the CDF program more time so that we can evaluate how the current arrangement is impacting development. And further, we need to evaluate the formula under the Local Government Equalization Fund and draw lessons from it that can inform the implementation of the CDF allocation formula. That said, we support the introduction of the resource allocation formula. We, however, urge the government to widely consider before introducing this policy measure so that we can sensitize the public on what it entails. And on the aspect of good governance, Minister, we should address with urgency critical governance reforms so that we can ensure that there is stability in the political realm, in the social realm, as we work towards enhancing our fortunes. The EAZ is always at hand to lend its, minds to things like that. And in that, I would like also to just make an announcement as I close off now, that Zaki was talking about an Indaba. The Economic Association of Zambia, in collaboration with ZIPA, working with the Ministry of Finance, will be holding an economic summit on the 14th to 15th September. The details will be provided through the press this afternoon. Suffice to say that the focus of this summit will be, holding the fort post the debt restructuring, and would like to emphasize on private sector development, revenue mobilization, and fiscal discipline coupled with political will to drive the economy forward. We'll be sending out invitations. This is a very, very important thing, and we hope that it will help to deal with some of the issues that have come forth. Thank you very much, and have a pleasant day. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngoma. That there's been quite a number of issues that have been raised. Perhaps at this point in time, we could give the Honorable Minister and the team an opportunity to reflect on some of the issues that have been raised. should they consider it necessary. After that, we are going to get to the next stage of our program. We are only remaining with the 45 minutes. This is a live broadcast event, so we have to terminate by 12:45. So the next stage, after the minister and the team have responded, is the Q&A. We should have had many more institutions making presentations, but I thought we could just pick on a few. We've received your submissions. We are looking at your submissions, but should you feel as a citizen, as an institution, except for those that belong to the institutions that came forward, you can come to the podium here and make your comment or question. Minister, I would like to inform you that because of the importance attached to the event, we are even having a visitor coming all the way from a media institution in France. They got the notice last week and they said, I'm coming. Pierre, you are welcome wherever you are sitting. I also received a message as I sat there that the Presidential Delivery Unit and the team there, they stopped doing what they are doing. They are listening to what the people are saying in this event. So for everybody, wherever you are, continue to be with us for the next 45 minutes. Honorable Minister, you may proceed with your thoughts, and thereafter we will take questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will not take long because I would like to accord as many people as possible the opportunity to say something. Just a couple of points. The first one is that I think I really appreciate some of the comments coming from colleagues from the mining sector, which of course includes petroleum, from the manufacturing sector, literally everybody, including ESH, emphasizing the need for us to focus on growing the economy now. The need to grow the economy now because, as I've said before, this is where the jobs will be created, which are so desperately needed. This is also how we are going to improve on tax revenues with many people in employment. So everything that we are going to do is about improving jobs creation. But looking at the history of countries that have managed to do this, job creation, especially the Southeast Asian countries, it also goes with a lot of changing ways in which to do things, changing our mindsets. Those of us who are in the public sector, being facilitators rather than frustrators, whereby a license is requested for or a permit, and for no reason it is dragged on and on and on. You don't realize that as you drag that, you are actually killing the job prospects of your children, because when your children grow big, they'll be looking for jobs, but you are busy killing jobs because in the manner by which you are interacting with those who are trying to create jobs. I know it has not really come out very strongly. There was a little bit of, I think a little bit of being not properly organized, but government is taking note of that, and we should see progress. As we do that, we should also be mindful of the fact that changing our mindset in palliative visits is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing at all. But we are up to the task. Next point I want to comment on is what the Commissioner General revealed to all of us this morning. the number of taxpayers in the country. The numbers of taxpayers in the country. You said less than 800 taxpayers provide 80% of the revenue, isn't it? Can you imagine? Less than 800 taxpayers provide 80% of the tax revenues. The rest of us, we want good roads, we want water, we want electricity all the time, we want to be educated, but we are all pointing fingers at all less than 800 people to provide 80% of the money. Part of that is what the CG said. We have been pushing very hard to make sure that the dragnet, your brother here, Mr. Ngoma, repeated the same thing. I fully support that. The ZRA must be ruthless, but polite and professional in the manner taxes are collected. But beyond that, more and more investments in our country. Because at some point you can say that you cannot collect taxes from nothing. Of course, there are people who are paying taxes, but the more there are who are able to pay taxes, the better. I think from, I agree with most of what has been said, and we will endeavor to get this implemented as quickly as possible. Of course, it's impossible to implement everything because just the capacity to take note and to do these things. But I think the direction is very clear. The commitment is very clear. We will push very hard for our economy to grow even bigger. Let me stop here because I'm mindful of the fact that there are many people who want to express themselves.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So we will get going with the comments from the audience. So for this segment, you have a minute only.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to the Ministry of Finance for this engagement. Honorable Minister, in line with the Ministry's policy of fiscal consolidation. Okay. My name is Natasha Chilundika. I'm a director at PRS365, a Zambian consulting firm. So like I was saying, in line with the Ministry's policy of fiscal consolidation and increased efficiency in budget management, we as young people are concerned with the increased funding to the CEC fund, which was, I think, 377 million kwacha this year, when the fund's management is still marred by governance issues and poor performance. Just recently, the Minister of SME indicated that there's 38% default rates under the CEC fund, and yet it's being flagged as a flagship development program. This money could be better utilized at the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, where there are empowerment programs that actually impact poverty and sustainably improve livelihoods in a tangible and inclusive manner. Further, these programs are designed in such a manner that the community participates in selection of beneficiaries. This helps to address the issues of targeting that we see at the CEC fund. Also, the CEC fund is a very tiny part of the CEC legislation, which we feel that if the CEC focuses on fully actualizing and implementing the CEC legislation, legislation, it is very critical in ensuring that we achieve the SME development that we are talking about in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Schinga. Proceed. See how you can do it in 30 seconds. You are very, very good at managing resources.
I knew you were going to say that. Honorable Minister, thank you very much indeed with the team, and thanks for the information provided. I thought I would just mention one or two things. In doing so, don't chase me up, Mr. Kandeta. Number one, we are a mining country, period. In terms of the budgets and everything else we're talking about, we are a mining country. Without sorting out the mines, you cannot even implement any of the assignments we've talked about. But Minister, I want to say this. Sometimes I get surprised at our own policy frameworks, and you and I, in another life, we have shared this issue. If we assume that 800,000 is our production, 800,000 metric tons is our production, and we are levying the mining companies at 3% mineral royalty tax, which is the only thing you can get out, we earn $200 million, period. 800,000 metric tons of copper. I want to put it to you this way, Minister, and also the colleagues, Secretary to Treasury. It's about time we started talking about specific value chains. That amount of copper going out only earns you $6.7 billion as a country, and your mineral royalty tax from there, as I said, at 3% is only $200 million. That is not money that you can be able to implement your 8th National Development Plan. You cannot do it. And for the benefit of those that may not know, I worked for the mines for 10 years as Group Financial Controller of ZCCM, so I am giving you facts which probably very few people would give you. Assuming that we are talking about an exchange rate of 20 kwacha to $1, what you get from that 200 million is only 4 billion kwacha. The budget of last year, I think, is much more than that. So I think we have to rethink this. We need to move away from exporting and mineral. My colleagues that came from the mining sector talking about exporting raw copper, forget it. You will not get to the levels that you do. And we've only got one more, 9th National Development Plan, to get to Vision 2030. We won't make it. And however, for the benefit, we should make the effort. You will not make $3 million, 3 million metric tons of copper. You just won't do it. Not in 10 years. My concern, Minister, is that we keep talking about FDA. As Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, it was my job to market Zambia, including to places like United States, Singapore, Geneva, London, wherever you may want to talk about where we go to. It takes roughly at best 3 years from the time you go to market to the time that you can even talk about starting the process of putting mortar and blocks on the ground. 3 years. So if we're talking about 2024 to 2026, it won't be possible. Our friends from the banking sector, you are part of the problem. You borrow base rates from Bank of Zambia at 9 point something, you charge 26%. Which business is going to make a profit at 26%? And that's the minimum. 26%. Which SME is going to pay back at 26%? Tell me. And Zanamaka, friends, I think you can bear this out. It's not possible. especially at the starting point. You can't just not do it. We need to move to value chains, value addition, take that copper out of the market, 800,000 tons, take it out of the market, make the products here in our country. Then you can talk about implementing these programs. Without doing that, we are going to spend so much time, and we'll be back in this same ground. I hope I'll still be alive, Minister, with you, so that we can come and have this conversation again. I don't know that I'll be there, but I hope my grandchildren will be. The last item I wanted to talk about is about agriculture. I was Minister of Agriculture, so I can speak with authority. Don't get rid of FISIP. Don't even try it. Fix it, change it, enhance it, make it more efficient. This electronic voucher system is not the solution, because your registers is what you need to sort out. Registers of your farmers, what are they? And I do agree with the contribution that was made here to identify all these farmers, where they are, what kind of products they are going to be doing. And IMF, you are part of the problem. IMF. And I'm not a diplomat, so I'm not going to be polite to you. You are part of the problem. There is no way you can expect that an SME is going to borrow at 26% and it will survive. It's dead from the beginning. So in your policies and your demands on government, yes, you should demand discipline. Yes, there should be no politicization. Yes, there should be no corruption. Yes, we do a lot of things wrong ourselves. And yes, we need to sort those out as Zambians. But your own institution has been part of the problem all along, together with your colleagues at the World Bank. You come for 5 years, these programs for 5 years, after 5 years you walk away. No development takes place in 5 years. It doesn't. So we want you to change your approach to this, and you should listen to us. We are equally educated, just like you guys at IMF and World Bank. For me, I went to Harvard Business School. You can't go to a better business school than that. So I know what I'm talking about. So please, change the attitude where you think you are coming here to tell us what we should do. You should listen to what we want in order to have development in the country. I thank you.
Do we have some other interventions? May I encourage ladies to participate in this process? I can't see the lady, but there is a lady with a hand. Please come forward to the microphone.
Good afternoon, Minister, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taubisim Chimba from Crown TV. So I would like to find out from the Minister, why doesn't government get to budget enough money for the entire year to prevent the use of supplementary budgets? Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Dr. Manza's hand up. You may proceed and make your comments, sir. Dr. Manza was a lecturer of the minister.
Thank you very much. There is no doubt that we have experienced in the last 2 years very improved fiscal management, and we have actually, to a certain extent, achieved some macroeconomic stability. But my concern is the growth of the private sector. It is the private sector that is going to grow the economy. And that requires private sector investment. But so far, we have had quite large pledges, investment pledges. But there seems to be a very wide gap between the pledges and realization of the investment. Particularly in the energy sector, we have had very large pledges. But after the pledges, there is a very wide and loud deafness, complete silence. Nothing seems to be happening, nothing to be, there is no follow-up. Because I'm sure if you commit something large to be invested, there must be follow-up steps of how to realize that investment. But in the case of the pledges that have come from United Kingdom, from United Arab Emirates, we haven't seen any realization of that. And my other concern is on the PPP as a vehicle for financing infrastructure. I think so far we have realized only 2 projects in the same area, which is the Lusaka-Ndola dual carriage and Chingola Chirilawombwe road. Since those 2 projects have commenced, we haven't heard much from the PPP Council as to what there is they are marketing. What is it that they are marketing? Which infrastructure projects are lined up for investment through the PPP investment vehicle? This has been disappointing because we don't hear much of what is going on in that area. And yet, infrastructure is very important. And in my view, we really need to develop the Northwest Railway so that we can connect with Angola. Most of our copper production is moving to Northwestern, and that will be the shortest route from Northwestern to Lobito. And we need to take off the road the copper transportation and the heavy load transportation to railways. And such a railway line would be extremely effective and economically viable. I think, again, let me end by paying tribute to the Central Bank and to the Minister of Finance for achieving the debt restructuring, and indeed we are hoping that this will create more conducive environment for private sector investment. And we shouldn't cheat ourselves. That you will see that countries that have developed quickly, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, Malaysia, the drivers of growth have been the private sector, and we need to facilitate the private sector. As the ministers rightly put it, you are not supposed to be frustrators, but facilitators. I thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have another intervention? Ladies, you are encouraged to participate, please. Can I pick the gentleman? Yes, yourself.
Recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister.
You have 2 minutes, please. We need to manage time.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Shleshikandete. My first contribution or question goes to the Commissioner General. In analyzing your tax contribution under the private sector, and I think from a mining industry, like I think has earlier been alluded to by the mining sector. I note that the contribution from the agriculture sector in particular was not really highlighted from there. And yet, as a country, we are saying that we are moving towards agriculture being the center pivot of the country. And if that is so, then we need to ensure that we have a deliberate policy to boost the agriculture sector. And in boosting that, I think I note that, Honorable Minister, I think from the UNIP era to the MMD, there's been much talk of agriculture being boosted. But I think this has just been a talk. We have not really moved towards that. I think we still lean towards much of the mining undertaking. So I think there is need for us to look at interventions or incentives that will be given to local investors who are in farming. And I think some of the banks have got records. And I think I take note of the other presenter who indicated that we need a register of who are the local farmers, including, I think, the deals that we are dealing with the FISIP under the small scale. But I think there are those that are...
Your 2 minutes is up. We need to move. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other intervention? Yes, gentlemen, come forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to recognize the Honorable Minister and all important delegates around. My name is Amumbingwai. I'm from the University of Zambia. I arise on 3 points, 2 affecting the youth and 1 for the country. For the youth, the private sector of our country is basically the biggest driver, as well as the youth. But if you look at our involvement in the private sector, it's very less. You talked about tax collection. Only 800 contribute about 80%. The reason for that is, if you look at most of the youth, many of them lack the basic skills and knowledge when it comes to the operation of businesses. Honorable Minister of Finance, I'd like for you to go in conjunction with the Minister of Education that in the medium-term plan, you'd increase the budget on financial education as well as business education, because most of these people are pumping out into the economy really don't know how to run businesses. Henceforth, we're having these irregularities towards the tax collection. Secondly, when it comes to economic growth, I like to speak on manufacturing and technological development. The reason we are having a stagnation in terms of the income we're generating is because our country is basically trading raw materials as commodities on exports. Honorable Minister, we need to start processing and manufacturing our own products. I don't know if many of us can recall the problem we had in 1974 and 5, where copper prices fell, but the prices of manufactured copper goods still remain the same. Honorable Minister, with this I submit, let's increase our production in terms of manufacturing and technological advancements. Thank you.
Prudence, proceed and make your point. The lady, let's have the lady to make her point, and then the minister will reflect on that before we come to the next set.
Thank you, Mr. Kadeta, Minister of Finance, and everyone. My name is Prudence from Camnet TV. I'm a journalist. Just a quick one. The role of the central government sometimes is to intervene when things are not going well in the economy. And currently we've seen a high cost of living. What immediate intervention are we seeing from the minister with regards to the cost of living? The other question is on the social cash transfer program. I know part of the money we've gotten from the IMF is going towards social sector spending, and part of that is the social cash transfer program. But this is where I have a problem, Finance Minister. You are giving $20 to someone, and $20 and $10, that's 200 kwacha and 400 kwacha that they receive every month. And we expect to end poverty in this regard. So have you done a research, or has the Ministry of Community Development done a research to ascertain the social cash transfer money you are giving to people, if it is cushioning the high cost of living or ending poverty poverty levels? Do we have figures to show, to say there's been a reduction in poverty levels through the social cash trust for money that you are giving them at $10 and $20? Thank you.
Honorable Minister, do you have any thoughts on the issues that have been raised before you and your team?
Thank you. In the interest of time, it is not possible to answer everything. Let me pick out a few. CEC and governance, we'll take a look at that. Then my elder brother there, Bob Chinga. You cannot develop from exporting raw materials, you must add value. I think we are all 100% agreed that value must be added to the raw commodities. However, I would not agree with you when you say you cannot be rich by exporting raw materials. Because remember at the time when you were in ZCCM in the 70s, Chile was producing about the same quantities of copper as Zambia, 700,000 metric tons thereabout. Okay, we are both exporting raw materials. Then they ramped up their production through increased investment. Before we realized, they were producing 5 million tons of copper. And today, Zambia is still stuck at the 700,000. There is no doubt today, if you compare Chile and Zambia, the Chileans are much richer than ourselves. Why? Because increased production, for us, we've been stuck. And in the meantime, when we got stuck at 700,000 metric tons, the population has increased from 3-4 million people at that time, now to almost 20 million. So it is common logic that what satisfies you when you are only 3-4 million, the same quantity cannot satisfy 20 million people. So we needed to ramp up production ourselves. And please take note, there are countries that are rich because of producing raw materials in big quantities. Australia, Canada, Russia. These are all countries that are not as poor with us, and this came about because of increasing production rather than being stuck. Having said that, indeed you are right. If we increase production of the raw minerals, and on top of that, added value to some of these products, we would even be richer. So the solution is not to say, don't increase production or pay little attention, just do value addition. You need to do both. On the you can never reach to 3 million tons, not in the same time period, perhaps not, yes, but I think we need to challenge ourselves and to increase production. Look at Congo. 10 years ago, Congo was producing less copper than us. Today, Congo is producing nearly 2 million tons of copper. They rose from 400,000 to 2 million tons of copper. And look at where Congo is today. All these imports that are being sucked in Congo, that is an indication that there is now money. So even if we don't hit the target exactly, but we should aspire rather than remain content that 700,000 tons of copper will get us out of poverty. I've taken your point on FISIP. Supplementary budget we do supplementary budget because a budget is always an estimate, and in the middle of the year, that estimate can be overtaken by events, so there's nothing strange about that. The gap between investment pledges and realizations, yes, I think we've noted that. However, there have also been some which have been pledged and also fulfilled. A good example of this is the First Quantum in the mining sector. They pledged to invest in the nickel. They've done it. They pledged to invest into expanding the Kansanshi mine. They've done it. As a general rule, though, I fully agree that there should be tighter monitoring to check whether pledges are being turned into realities. So I take note of the advice. On the PPP projects, yes, Ndola, Lusaka, they've just started. Chingola to Kasumbalesa, way underway. And in the pipeline, there's Ndola, Mfulira, Sakania, Mokambo, that corridor. I think the negotiations are getting towards conclusion. Then there's also, so Ndola, Sakania, Mfulira, Mokambo to join DRC, which means that we are now going to have 2 routes, in fact 3, but for the moment 2, joining Congo with Zambia, and with that we hope that the congestion that we saw last year, that should be getting to be a thing of the past. Then there's also another on the horizons, also very well advanced in terms of negotiations. This is from Lumana towards a place called Kambimba on the Congolese border again. That's why I said at least 3 connections with Congo now. And that will now join us with Kolwezi. So this one also, the negotiations are getting towards the conclusion. Lumana, Kambimba, Kolwezi, in Congo DRC. Then there's the one that you mentioned, Dr. Mwanda, the Lobito corridor. You recall there was a pledge from the US government that they will assist to open this because the railway line from Lobito towards Zambia is 90% done. What remains is the section for Zambia to tap on the Congolese, on the Angolan side. I think that place is called Lucano or something like that, towards Mwinilunga and Chingola. The US government, I think they've made a public pronouncement that they'll assist Zambia with that. And the preliminary discussions have started. We'll push very hard for the reasons that you indicated. In the 70s, 60s, that was actually the main export route for our copper. So those are examples of PPP. Another one is Chanida to Katete. The negotiations are almost concluding. Then from Solwezi to Kasempa to Kaoma, on the way to Mongus, Nanga, Sesheke, into Caprivi. There's also strong interest for that. So there are a number of PPP projects that in the next 1 month or so, you'll be hearing us concluding, and the details will be given within a short period of time. I think the issue of raw materials and so forth, we've discussed that. And this is another reason why we have to put more incentives and easier administrative processes in the multi-facility economic zones, because these will be the ones that will be good for processing raw materials. Let me stop and listen to some more.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We'll come to the last part of our program, and we thank you very much for staying on, as I, at this point, call upon Mr. Humphrey Mlenga, the Managing Partner of Deloitte, to just give us some thoughts and what the key takeaways from an independent perspective are. You can go to the podium in front, please.
Please allow me to ride on the protocols that Mr. Kandeta, the Director of Programs, set out at the beginning. To start off, Honorable Minister, distinguished invited guests, I think congratulations are in order for the Minister and his team for what they have achieved over the past couple of years. To cite a few data points and key takeaways from this insightful event today, on the debt front, the debt is now being reined in. Phenomenal progress has actually been made, with program parameters already agreed upon with the bilaterals and the official creditors. This is 6.3 billion worth of our debt, and discussions are ongoing even as we speak with the private creditors. The IMF made reference to this, and so did the ST. On the expenditure side, in terms of controls, we are seeing enhanced fiscal discipline, both in terms of just spending, but also expenditure more broadly, which is obviously very pleasing. And we saw this actually throughout all the presentations, including from the PS, who showed us a graph showing how expenditure is being controlled and contained. On the GDP side, despite headwinds from the Ukraine war, for example, external shocks, the challenge global economy, GDP growth has been regained. Last year, we achieved a growth of 4.7% compared to 3.5% was in the minister's budget in 2022. The minister made reference to a dip this year to maybe 2.3% because of reduced mining in large part. But if you look at where we are going forward, it is forecast to be at an average of 4.7% going into 2026. Again, the Ministry of Finance officials made that clear. This is commendable. Inflation is back down to around 10%. You recall 2 years ago it was over 20%. So again, even though 10% yes is high, and we hear what the IMF had to say, 10% is definitely a big improvement compared to what we were a couple of years ago. On the FDI front, so foreign direct investment, this has improved significantly. We heard about the nickel mine, which has been commissioned, and once it's fully operational, it will be the largest nickel mine in Africa, actually. And we heard from the Chamber of Mines, nickel, the price is 3 times that of copper. So that is obviously commendable, it's impactful. Even more important, we are seeing investment in exploration. For example, this company called Cobalt Metals out of California, they're now in the country using AI and advanced technologies to try and explore for more copper, which is extremely important as it underpins our ambitions to grow output to 3 million metric tons. So good investments going into the mining sector. Of course, more can be done. So in summary, the data are clear, the picture self-evident. Strong progress has been achieved to date. But yes, it's fair to say there's still much to be done. And we heard from everybody here that we all agree much has to be done. This resonates with what you're also seeing in industry, actually, as we interact with different companies, captains of industries, and business leaders. More needs to be done. We also know that the Honorable Minister of Finance is well aware of this. He accepts that more needs to be done. But let's look at a few points that came out from this session today on what can be done and where improvement might be required. GDP came up strongly from the Economic Association of Zambia. We are growing at, or forecast to grow at 4.7%, which is commendable, but not nearly enough, I think was the message. If you look at our population growth rate, we are tracking at 3.4%. So for us to really make an impact on poverty reduction and job creation, we have to grow at some higher rates, maybe 8 to 10%. And we're hopeful that in the years to come, we'll be more aspirational as a people and as government. On the interest rates front, again, this was referenced by the minister himself, but also by the Bankers Association. Interest rates are over 25%, which is a bit high, difficult to make a return on those kind of interest rates. But again, we're aware that the governor at the central bank is well aware of this, and with his colleagues on the monetary policy side, I believe they've got all hands on deck to try and bring these rates to more sustainable levels. ZRA, they shared some quite profound statistics with us. One that caught my eye was the reduction in tax collections, especially from the mining industry. But again, the reasons are clear. Because of the depressed production, we have had less revenues coming from the mining sector. The good news is that there seems to be a plan in place. I saw a number of over 900 metric tons in terms of production in 2026 from the Minister of Finance. That means we should be able to get more out of the mining industry if we stay the course, carry on exploring and producing more. Zamanaka also had some interesting points, actually. Now we can expand our tax base rather than focusing on the 800 taxpayers that were referenced. There's some really interesting points on how you can tap into that informal sector. And I think they said there are 6 million members there who can actually contribute quite respectable amounts. I'm sure the Commissioner General was listening, and I'm sure they're going to have some interaction with Zamanaka there. The other point is just around mining. I think the key message from Dr. Sixtus Mlenga from the mining chamber was that mining is not just copper. There is manganese, which might underpin our steel industry, for example. What they need are some incentives. There is nickel itself, which is 3 times as valuable as copper. There's petroleum. So what we need to do is broaden the sources of our mining. Exploration is therefore really critical here, and I think the chamber as well made this point eloquently. We have to explore the length and breadth of the country to underpin our ambitions to grow mining output to 3 million metric tons. Another connected point we picked up was the need to have a master plan, I think it was called, by the Economic Association of Zambia, of how we'll get to that 3 million metric tons, with milestones and timelines and how we're going to achieve that. And I'm sure the minister has taken note of that. Value addition came up strongly. This is important, but not on its own. We can value add, yes, but we should also produce more than we've been producing in the past. And I think the minister was very eloquent in his response on that front. The other point I would like to discuss, which I think may not have been touched upon as robustly as would have wanted, is youth unemployment, which I think is one of the biggest headaches we face as a country. All the measures we've discussed, whether it's increasing FDI, encouraging domestic investment, improve the macroeconomic environment, will certainly help with creating more jobs, including for the youth. However, is it time perhaps to deploy more direct and immediate measures via some sort of a Marshall Plan? We all know our neighbor to the north, the DRC, are in dire need of maize and maize products, mealie meal, for example, causing shortages in our country locally. On the other hand, we have abundant arable land, as we heard from a number of presenters here, close to the border with the DRC, lots of water up north. We also have abundant labor resources up and down the country, which manifests itself in the form of various illegal activities sometimes, whether it's street vending or other vices. Would it be possible to come up with a plan to leverage this abundant labor resource, perhaps under the guidance of our national service, in collaboration with the private sector, and focus on scaling up production of maize for the export market? The benefits arguably would be immediate or near immediate. The individuals would be involved in gainful employment, we'll be collecting more taxes as a country, forex will be end, but also our neighbor will get the product that they need. As you understand it, the opportunity in the DRC and neighboring countries is so large that there is enough space for both the private sector and the public sector. Hence, little risk of crowding out the private sector. Just some food for thought. Distinguished guests, Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I'll end here, but if I could just finish by again expressing our heartfelt gratitude to the Honorable Minister of Finance and his team for the continuous openness that they're showing. They're willing to engage us on every turn. That is commendable. We're also very thankful that they're making every effort, in fact, remarkable efforts, to try and get this economy back on track. That is very commendable indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mlenga, and thank you for your sponsorship of the live broadcast on ZMBC TV1. At this point in time, may I invite the Honorable Minister to give us his final reflections, and then we'll come to the close of the program. Thank you. Honorable Minister, sir.
Thank you very much, and also want to echo your gratitude to Deloitte for having sponsored this occasion together with the USAID. And I also want to thank the audience here for having taken time to come and listen to us, including those who are on media. And of course, I want to thank our colleagues who are here at the table with me for having made the various presentations, the IMF, Commissioner General, the senior government officials, acting peers. So thank you very much. We look forward to meeting you again to review the next quarter. But before then, of course, we will meet, or you'll follow us in Parliament as we present the national budget for 2024. Thank you so much. I wish each and every one of you a pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. At this point in time, I'll invite back Reverend Banda to give us a closing prayer, and then we sign off with the anthem. Shall we be upstanding, please? I understand Reverend Charles Banda has just stepped out, so we will thank the Lord for having blessed the proceedings of this event, and we ask that as we leave, we go with the blessings both for ourselves and our families. With thanksgiving in our hearts, we pray. Amen. Thank you very much. That concludes our program. For colleagues from the media and all media houses, we thank you so much for taking time to cover this event. With the case of USAID Revenge for Growth project, you are all invited for lunch, which is being served in cafe room for our VIP guests and the sponsors. The lunch is in the holding room. Thank you.